This was supposed to be a small opportunity, just a local art job to get my name out there, but instead it turned into nearly 60 hours of work. 9 4x8 plywood boards turned into 11 pieces. There's a banner, a map, landscapes, animal portraits, cutouts, painting, priming, sanding, and just trying to finish everything before the county fair deadline. This became my first real paid art project. And if you've ever wondered what kind of work goes into a project like this, here's the entire process from raw plywood to finished fairgrounds. This project included 11 pieces. The main Big Butler Fair ribbon sign that people could stand under, including the year, a draft horse board, a beef cow, a dairy cow, sheep, goats, horse and pony, chickens and ducks, rabbits, alpaca, and a large map that had a few states. Most of the boards also needed face cutouts so people could stand behind them and take pictures, which meant everything needed to be smooth, safe, and durable, especially with kids using them. Before any painting even started, every one of those 4x8 plywood boards had to be primed, and there were 9 of them. And then I had to sketch on them, cut the face holes out, and then make sure that everything was sanded smooth so that nobody was dealing with rough edges near their face. And honestly, the prep work alone took way longer than I ever expected. I used white Zinsser Hides multi-purpose primer and sealer to prime my plywood boards. Honestly, it just kind of looked like it'd do the job, and it was pretty cheap at my local hardware store. And while this video is rolling here, showing all these exciting clips of me painting mindlessly with a roller, I'd like to make a point as to how this opportunity even presented itself. This job came from someone who's actually been a huge inspiration to me, a retired art teacher and local friend who's done art jobs around the community for years, and is actually still doing art projects around the community. She was offered this project for the Big Butler Fair and passed it on to me instead, and honestly, that meant a lot. She knows I've been trying to get a side business started, and she did everything she could for me to get this job started and point me in the right direction. The detailed notes and sketches from the beginning of this video were written and created by her when she met with the individuals that were involved with the fair. I couldn't make the meeting as I was actually teaching at the time during school hours. But again, she's retired, so she was able to make this meeting. With all that being said, she was a huge support throughout this entire process and gave me a lot of helpful hints, tips, and even gave me a lot of my supplies to start out with for this project and even future projects. She's truly one of a kind, and I cannot thank her enough for offering me this opportunity. Once I had all my boards primed, with the white primer, I spent, it was probably about 4 or 5 nights. I just ended up using a projector. I had some drawings of animals that I had made. I just kind of projected them in my garage, and just to kind of save some money for the fair, because they were reimbursing me for the wood. I tried to fit as many animals as I could. I tried to make them sort of life size, based on what kind of animal it was. And so I, tried to double up. The one that I used with a cow, I tried to do, on the other side of the board, rabbit. The rabbits, because they're a little bit smaller. I did the same thing with the chickens and the ducks. I tried to make them on the smaller part of a board that I was already using for another animal, just to try to, save some cost in buying more boards. Once all of the drawings were made on the boards, I brought the boards to school. I brought them to where I work. I cut the boards, and that was a little bit of a process. I had to drill a hole where I wanted to start cutting, and I had to use a handheld jigsaw to cut the hole, and then after that it was just a lot of sanding and making sure everything was nice and smooth. But it went pretty smoothly. I kept the boards at school. I moved them down to a long hallway that I could have again, more space to kind of get some work done. I was quickly running out of time. The school year was almost up. I think we had like a week left of school. Grades were already in, and so I tried to pull as many resources as I could. I ended up recruiting some students I think I originally took like 9 students. It turned into 11 at one point, but they were a huge help. I just, didn't really have much prepared for them. I had some things for them to lay the boards down on, and I had to prepare a lot of different paints for them to, to get them to just do the backgrounds. I just needed the backgrounds done because that would have taken me forever. So I just tried to get the colors ready for them. They were painting them. I even painted it a little bit as they were working, but it was really an all-day process for at least, I think it was 3 different days of school. I had kids come down, to that hallway to work on painting backgrounds and putting some details into the backgrounds for me to save me some time, because there's no way I was getting this done before the deadline. And honestly, it was not even the deadline. I was actually going on vacation before this deadline was even going to happen, so I had to get it done before I went on vacation. So, we had I think I had about like a week and a half to really finish this whole thing. They did a spectacular job doing the backgrounds to the animals. So I thought, why not? Have them paint the map. There's really not a lot of hard work in doing that with kind of shading or anything, just kind of flat colors. So I brought the map to work, had them painted that during work. I also spent, it's like the night I realized that they did such a great job with the backgrounds, I might as well just have them do the main color of the sign, the banner. So that night, I spent about 2.5 hours taping the banner, and then I ran into a little bit of a snag. I realized that I wasn't going to have my truck to bring that board to work the next day because it was, it needed to be serviced. So I had to borrow my wife's van, and she had to borrow one of her parents' cars the next day to go to work, and it barely fit. It took me probably about 30 minutes to figure out how to get that board to fit in that van properly so that nothing would be damaged and I could get it to work without having to have it hang out a window. And the kids did a great job of giving me at least a base layer of paint. I did have to put a second coat on it. Once all the backgrounds were done, the map, and at least the first coat on the sign, I brought everything home. I have some pallets that I have at home. I stuck everything on pallets. Outside, I actually had my mother-in-law watch my kids for a day as if I was working at school just about. And I spent what would be a school day, although it wasn't during school anymore because school was out, just trying to get as much done as I could. The majority of that day was spent doing the sign. Because I had the letters taped, that's not foolproof. There's still going to be some, especially on plywood, there's still going to be paint that's going to go underneath the tape, where I wasn't careful, or the students weren't careful with putting the paint. There's going to be paint on some of the letters that I wanted to try to keep white. So I had to peel off all the tape, and I had to kind of touch everything up. As far as brushes I used, I didn't really use too many fancy brushes. I had I have zebra brushes that again, the retired art teacher had given me. First I thought she was kind of lending it to me, but she just gave it to me, which is amazing. But I did have a few brushes that I used for this, just to kind of touch up where the white was going to go to make it as bright as I could. If you're watching this and listening to me at the same time, if you pay attention to the shadow on the ground, you can see how long this process really took. To try to make sure that everything was nice and bright and white where the letters were, and then also where I was putting all of the yellow stripes on the sign, how long of a process that took. And that really took the majority of the day. I did, however, also get done with at least one of the cows. I think it turned out pretty well, and I was really kind of surprised by it. Not perfect by any means, a lot of errors I'm looking at, but for a fair and getting at least one of the animals done made me feel better. I also did the separate sign that was going to hang below the banner, and then did the same process as I did for the banner, except it's on a much smaller scale because it's just going to be hanging down below the sign. After that one day of working, I really only had nights. So I tried to get done with as much as I could when my kids went to bed. The next one I did was the alpaca. Really happy with the way that came out. And then I did the horse and pony. As far as getting colors for the different animals, I don't have any fancy things I bought from anything online or any stores. I just used one of those baking pans that you can get at the dollar store, parchment paper, and I put some wet paper towels underneath. I apologize that I do not have any footage of me painting these things. To be honest with you, it was a pretty intimidating process. It was really just like a trial and error. And after a few animals that I did, I kind of got into a zone where I felt comfortable. Like if I made a mistake or I felt like it was going to be a mistake, you could kind of easily blend it and work it around. So it was a pretty enlightening experience doing this, and made me feel comfortable, or at least more comfortable painting. If I had to paint again, this way, this style, made me feel a lot more confident after doing it. I was most worried about doing the rabbits, the chickens, and the ducks, just because I feel like there were a lot more colors involved, and a lot more textures that I had to try to incorporate. Once all the painting was done, all the final touches on the animals, the map, the banner, once all that was finished, the fair wanted a sign, like a little emblem, to be included on all the animal signs. And after speaking with my mentor, she came with a great idea of getting vinyl stickers and just kind of putting them on there, so that I wouldn't have to go and paint on every single one of these an emblem and try to get as much detail on that as possible. So that was a huge help that she went through with getting these stickers. Great idea on her part, and saved me a ton of time. The ribbon sign was asked to be reused for future years, so I went ahead and made sure that both sides were completely coated more than once of paint. And also I just kind of went ahead and bought some protective urethane to put a coat on the front. I did 2 or 3 coats in the front. I did I think 2 coats on the back, so that it could be used for future years. And then I also created that separate hanging 2026 sign underneath, so that it could easily be updated each year without remaking the entire piece, which this was probably the smartest decision of the whole project, and that was on their part. They were thinking ahead, like, hey, we can reuse the big sign, we just change the year sign every year. After all that was done, I went ahead and decided, you know what, this is my way to get my name out there. So I had the idea of putting a QR code on the back of each of these signs, or at least for the animals, so they could redirect people to my Facebook page. My wife ended up designing it. She ended up getting a QR code, and we just printed them off of like a vinyl sticker paper that you could print out of your printer. And I ended up cutting them all out, sticking them on the back, which again is a little bit of a process. I did have to sand the board, make sure everything was nice and smooth. I think I also put like a thin layer of that urethane over top of where I sanded, so that I could put a QR code on there and it would actually stay. This project ended up taking just under 60 hours total. And that's while working, after school, at night, on weekends, and all of that. Which really opened my eyes to how much work large projects actually take. especially when you're still learning as you go. This project taught me a lot, just not just about painting. It did teach me a lot about painting, but about time management, project planning, durability, workflow, and what it actually feels like to complete a large paid project. It also made something very clear. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm capable of more than I thought. And if you're still watching, thanks for watching.